Ever since Kawhi Leonard has emerged as one of the best wings in the NBA, there have been countless players deemed as the next Kawhi Leonard. And you may ask, what skill set must one possess to be deemed the next Kawhi Leonard? Well, a player who can score at all three levels, but more emphasizing on the mid-range and the inside shot more than a three-point shot, and an elite defender. Stanley Johnson was often deemed the next Kawhi Leonard after his very successful season at Arizona. He was drafted 8th overall by the Detroit Pistons, and he was supposed to be a pretty solid NBA player. However, today he sits in the G League with no real signs that he'll ever be the next Kawhi Leonard. So how'd this happen? Today we're going to be talking about the fall of the next Kawhi Leonard, aka the fall of Stanley Johnson. So without further ado, let's get started. Johnson attended Mater Dei High School, a basketball powerhouse. He excelled, averaging 25.1 points per game, and helped lead Mater Dei to a 35-0 record, and was named Mr. Basketball as well as the boys basketball Gatorade player for the state of California. And Johnson was also a McDonald's All-American. So when it came time to pick a school, many of the best programs in America were begging for Stanley Johnson to come. But at the end of the day, Johnson chose to attend Arizona as it was closer to home than Kentucky. As a freshman, Johnson showed flashes of why people called him the next Kawhi Leonard. Being able to score, averaging 13 points per game, but was really impressive was how good he was on the defensive side of the ball, being able to have 1.5 steals a night. There were a few weaknesses with Johnson's game, however, as he was not going to beat you off the dribble, he was not a very fast player, and he was not a knockdown three-point shooter, but many thought he would be able to develop that once he got into the league. Johnson's major competition was Duke forward Justice Winslow, but Johnson was more scouted, and after Winslow won the national championship at Duke, that did change a little bit, but the consensus was that Johnson was the better player. The Detroit Pistons obviously thought so, as they selected Stanley Johnson with the 8th overall pick in the 2015 NBA draft. And the hope was that he could help Detroit out of their little mini rebuild. Remember, this was after the Josh Smith experiment that did not work at all. So the Pistons weren't bad, but they weren't great either. They were just kind of that middle team. But there was some hope that Johnson would be able to help the Pistons get out of that. However, he really didn't excel at all. He averaged just 8.1 points per game on 42% shooting. And actually, it's not like he wasn't getting chances. Johnson was the team's sixth man. And the Pistons did make the NBA playoffs, but what was really concerning for Stanley Johnson was that his defensive game that was so good in college was not translating very well to the NBA. This was shown in full effect when Johnson was given the responsibility to guard LeBron James whenever Johnson was out on the floor. But when he guarded LeBron, he went 7 from 9 in game 1, and then Johnson said, yeah, I'm in his head. And you know what? I'll have to agree with Stanley Johnson. He was in LeBron's head. LeBron probably thought, oh yeah, I remember making that kid look silly. The hope was that these were early struggles in just growing pains and adjusting into the NBA, which can happen a lot for a lot of different players. However, this would not be the case for Stanley Johnson, as his second season was no better. Actually, Johnson and the Pistons were worse. When it came time for season 3, Johnson did up his points to 8.7 per game, but still, this man was selected 8th overall. He was a huge disappointment. He was selected before Devin Booker, who at this point had emerged as a rising star in the league. The Pistons were getting extremely tired of the lack of production from Johnson, so they traded him to the Bucks, who then turned around and traded him to New Orleans. Stanley Johnson averaged 6.9 points per game in the 2018-2019 season, but the Pelicans did not want to keep him on the team, so Johnson ended up signing in Toronto with the Raptors for a 2-year deal worth $7.5 million. This was pretty forgettable. It was more of the same for Stanley Johnson, but now it wasn't a disappointment, just what we had come to expect from the 6'7" wing. The Lakers would sign Johnson in 2021 in order to fill a roster spot and give the team some depth, but they would not re-sign him for this upcoming season. Now, in the current day, Stanley Johnson is playing for the G League Sioux Falls Skyforce. I'm sure I butchered the name of that. Y'all can let me know down in the comments. It's kind of my thing. Where he's only averaging about 2 points on 19 minutes a night. So, folks, he's not the next Kawhi Leonard, and he's not even the next Kawhi Leonard in the G League. And no disrespect to the G League, there are some phenomenal players in there, but for someone who has that much hype coming out of college, you should at least be a respectable G League player. But anyway, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please show by hitting the like button and subscribing for more content. It helps me out a ton, and it absolutely makes my day. Until next time, I want you all to have an awesome day, and I'll see you later.